Well, hello there, and welcome to FrankieSense and More. It's February 1. Wow, we got here. And it hasn't been that bad a winter, actually. Not where we're living anyway. I think I'm living in a really sweet spot. How about you?
Well, we had a really deep freeze snap for about a week,
Yep.
polar vortex, but once that passed, it really wasn't too bad.
Yeah, we
They're
haven't.
predicting we were supposed to get a lot more snow than we did, which we didn't.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can handle that.
I think the weathermen, today they're like alarming people. I mean, we would
Yeah.
never be stopping school on the we might get a big storm. Now
Yeah.
they stay away for the week because they might get something. That never happened. And this alarmist attitude is taking prevalent, and it's really silly.
Well,
Like,
having grown up in upstate New York where we got lots of snow all the time, I'm perfectly willing to go and forego it at this point.
me too, me too. Although I do still like to have the seasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we got some good movies to review.
Yeah, we sure do. I mean, this was a pretty substantive month in terms of releases. Now, I should probably let viewers and listeners know that the material that we're looking at this month is maybe a little bit heavier than we typically do. I mean, we got six fairly substantial films here, but they're all really good. So, I mean, I think, if you give them a shot, you'll really enjoy them. So,
Agreed. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me start sharing my screen here for a moment.
okay. So our first film is an independent film that's been playing in theaters in kind of limited release. It's probably going to be coming to streaming sometime soon, called Memory. And this tells the story of a woman who's a middle-aged, recovering alcoholic who had a very troubled past. And she's, managing to pull things together, but she doesn't have much of a social life. And one night she goes to her high school reunion and seems a little bit, put off by things that are going on there, decides to leave. And when she does leave, she's followed home by one of her former classmates who's almost like stalking her. She's a little bit unnerved by that. But when she finds out later, she discovers that he didn't know why he followed her to begin with because he's suffering from early onset dementia. So she has some compassion for him. She's a caretaker, so that kind of comes naturally to her. But in the course of getting to know him better, she comes upon a realization that he may very well have been responsible for sexually abusing her as a teenager. The only problem with that is she finds out when talking to her sister that the two of them didn't go to high school together at the same time. So all of a sudden now she's faced with, well, where am I getting this memory from? And she goes to apologize to him, and he's actually surprisingly graciously forgiving because, as someone who's suffering from dementia, he knows what it's like to have memory issues. So the two of them start to get to know each other, and it leads to a very interesting story of healing and some budding romance between the two of them because she was at a point where she had issues that, because of her blocked memory, she obviously wasn't dealing with. And she needed somebody to help her work through that. Well, he might not have seemed to a lot of people to be the
Sure.
first choice for that, but given the fact that he's in, somewhat comparable circumstances, it enables him to work with her and, get on with her life.
Memory is so funny.
It really is. And that's one of the things that this movie, really stresses. It gets across the idea that memories, in a sense, are actually a form of belief. And
Mhm.
if you end up buying into a particular belief and it may not be exactly what happened, it's hard to shake it.
And you fill in the gaps with the
Yes.
with the fantasy. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I was sure 150% sure that my mother worked at this company
Yeah.
that I thought she worked at in marketing as a director. And my dad goes, she never worked. I go, yes, she did. Of course she did. I was 100 positive she worked. And maybe his memory was gone and mine was good. I don't know. But somebody wasn't remembering the same stuff. That is so weird. But I was like 3 or 4 years old. But I remember because we had somebody look after us. I go, well, where did she go then? If she was,
Well, it's interesting in this film too, because the false accusation like really pushes her to have to deal with what's really been bothering her all these years.
yeah.
What caused her to turn to drinking? What caused her to turn to a lot of, sort of self-destructive behavior? And interestingly enough, it ends up coming from a person who was himself, quote unquote, damaged in a certain way. But it's almost like a form of homeopathic therapy where
Yeah.
like cures like in this
Yeah.
case. You
Yeah.
know,
Interesting.
um, now the first half of this movie is a little bit on the slow side, but it really picks up in the second half and really presents a very engaging and nuanced story involving what's going on with each of them and how they're able to help each other in ways that they hadn't expected when you go back to the incident where they first met each other walking home from the reunion.
Jessica Chastain she's always one of my favorites. Always, always. I love what she does.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that she's always willing to take on roles that might not necessarily seem like a typical Jessica Chastain role.
Yeah.
And ends up pulling it off with, a tremendous performance. And as
It,
it turns out, she's been nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Best Lead Performance for this film.
nice. Nice.
She's nicely backed here also by Peter Sarsgaard, who has always been somewhat underrated. This
Yeah.
is probably, I would say, one of the best performances he's ever given. The two of them working together is a really strong combination. So this is a good film. It may take a little bit of an effort to find it, but I'm sure, as I said, it'll be probably coming to streaming pretty soon.
Yeah.
So give it a look, and give it a little time to develop too, because you're going to find out that it really is in the second half when it starts to take off more. So, cut it a little bit of slack, and I think you'll find that this is a worthwhile story. And I'm going to give it 3.5.
Okay.
So next we have another interesting film that's it's a documentary called Beyond Utopia, which tells the story of what it's like for people living in North Korea who are trying to escape the regime there. And this is a very telling picture in terms of exactly what the would-be defectors have to go through to get out of the country, given the fact that the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea is so heavily landmine laden, they actually have to go north into China first and then move through several other adjoining, Asian countries to escape. What this film does is it tells the stories of some people who have successfully managed to get away and also follows the stories of several defectors as they're in the process of escaping. There's no reenactments here. This is all firsthand on the ground footage showing exactly the ordeals
It's
that they have
scary.
to go through.
It's
And in between, the film also includes a number of insights from people who've escaped, talking about what it's like to live in North Korea, involving issues that probably a lot of Westerners aren't even familiar with,
yeah.
which proved to be incredibly eye-opening in terms of the difficulties and the torture and
It's
it's just
brutal.
yeah, it really is. I mean, the UN even did a human rights study about North Korea and said that it's probably the worst country on the planet from that standpoint. And a lot of their tactics, they say, are on par with Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I
Maybe
mean,
even worse than Nazi.
yeah,
And then you've got the surrounding countries. You got China and Thailand and Laos and they don't have any compunction about turning people in. They're going to get a little bit of
yeah,
money, and it's not about human rights with them. It's just they know that they're going to go back and be killed, or they're going to go back and be put in a camp where they wish they had been killed and
yes.
really beaten, but they
And
don't.
a lot of the people who, when they're leaving, even after they're outside the country, they're still brainwashed about what they've been told and taught about their homeland in terms of it being, as the title implies, a form of utopia. Well, I mean, if that's utopia,
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't want to live there. I mean,
Yeah. And this pastor Kim, who's an absolute saint, um, he saved over 1,000 people, which is absolutely incredible because he goes back and he literally goes and does it again and again and again, which really is amazing. And his wife had been a defector, so that was kind of interesting to find that out too. And after his son died, um, I can't remember how he died. I think he had a disease or something. He died, and after he died, he decided he would commit to saving more lives
yes.
in North Korea. So he's actually got a website up, and people can go there and donate or volunteer, which I think is, kind of beautiful.
It's definitely a worthwhile cause because I mean these people are really suffering. I
They
mean,
really are.
for everything that you hear about the so-called atrocities occurring in like some of the Middle Eastern countries, they pale in comparison to what's going on in North Korea. And because it's such an isolated country, people in the West typically don't find out very much about what's going on because a lot of times people don't make it, or if they do, they still keep kind of a low profile once they're free because you never know when agents are going to come along and try and take them back and put them into the kind of detention that they feel they should deserve for defecting like that.
And you talk about brainwashed from the youngest of age. They're
Yeah.
taught to hate Americans. They're taught Americans are just going to kill them as soon as they see them on sight. They're taught so much garbage, and this in just the brutality to their bodies, to their minds, to everything. And then you look at all of this, and you have Mr. Donald Trump going, "My good friend," and he loves Samuel Kim. He
Yeah.
loves him. He thinks he's like, my great friend, and would love to probably copy him in many regards. So
Yeah, it's really a brutal regime in so many ways. And even the people, when they're trying to get out and acting in good faith, they have to work with people they call brokers to help try and arrange their escape. And you never know what you're going to get with the broker. I mean, it could very well be some fly-by-night operation who's just going to take your money, or there are some that are legitimate that help people out, but it's taking a chance even with trying to pursue an avenue to make your escape, that you
hard
can
film to
can you really
watch.
trust who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So this is a really powerful
You
documentary,
have
and
to
it's
watch it.
probably
You have to
yeah
watch
it,
it. You have
yeah
to put it
it's
hard.
probably one of the best films I've seen about North Korea. There have been other ones, but this one really brings it home, especially since when it's following the stories of the defectors who are
Oh my
escaping.
God, this
It's
family.
it's it, yeah, it's all firsthand. It's not cut. It's not reenacted.
Got a
You know,
family with an 80-year-old grandmother and two little girls. Maybe one's like 5, one's maybe 8. So you got grandma trekking through forest and jungle. You got her climbing up mountains. You got her do amazing what she went through, and she didn't even want to leave because she thought
Yeah,
everything.
she basically said she just wanted to be with her family. I mean, she really still sees Kim Jong-un as a great man, and you
Yeah,
know,
and
you talk about brainwashing.
they carried cyanide pills with them just in case they're caught.
Yep.
They'd rather die than be put through the torture that they know is going to come to them.
But this is kind of a disturbing film, but it's very powerful. It's worth knowing. It's worth educating yourself about. It's nominated for a BAFTA award for Best Documentary Feature. I'm a little surprised it wasn't more widely recognized in some of the other award competitions, but this is a really powerful and impactful film, and I recommend it highly. I'm going to give this one 4 stars.
Yeah, you know what? I go higher, but that's okay. I would go higher, and I think that really, honest to God, you guys, you got to watch this movie. You got to watch this film. And I tried to get a hold of the director, Brent. I've tried to find her email. I tried to. She doesn't put her contact information out there at all, and maybe that's on purpose.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, considering, what she might face for making
Yeah.
a film like this,
In a way,
she
it reminds me of
probably,
that film we did on Nazarene, where everybody in the country was like giving, the footage outside of the country, but nothing near as
yeah.
as this one. Yeah.
So give this one a look. It's definitely worth it. So in contrast to people who are trying to get out, we have a film here with people who are trying to get in.
Holy
Uh,
moly.
we have Upon Entry, which is another independent film. This is airing currently on the Tubi TV streaming service. This tells the story of a couple from Spain that's looking to immigrate to the US. They followed all the rules and all the protocols. They have all the proper visas. I mean, they've done everything that they're supposed to, and yet when they arrive in the U.S., they get subjected to some incredible scrutiny and questioning about, well, what are you really doing here? I mean, is this a legitimate immigration or is there some kind of scam going on? And they're completely baffled by all this because they say, hey, we did everything we were supposed to do. Why are we being detained? And this is it's a movie that in many ways is almost like a stage play because it's got, limited sets and, limited scenery and all that sort of thing. And yet this is as gripping as any kind of action adventure film in terms of the scrutiny that they're put through when they see themselves as being perfectly innocent in terms of trying to carry out what they're trying to do. It's very well written. It's very well acted.
Yeah.
It's the kind of film that you're on the edge of your seat a lot because you don't really know where the customs agents are coming from in terms of why are they doing this? Why are they, you know,
They were abusive.
yeah, yeah. And the thing that's really kind of disturbing even more than that is the fact that this kind of thing goes on more than most people are aware,
Yeah. I mean, can,
you
can I have
know?
some water? No, sit down. Can I go to the bathroom? No, sit down. Like they couldn't have their phone, they couldn't have water, they couldn't go to the bathroom, they couldn't do anything. And what I found extremely abusive was when the agent said, "Show me that you can dance." That
Yes.
was that
Yeah.
was like gender, abuse.
Well, and on top of that, you've got people here who like I say, they always talk so much about the illegals trying to sneak in and how, terrible that is. But here you've got people who have followed the rules to just about to the letter. I mean, they may not have, dotted a few I's or crossed a couple of T's, but basically they've done everything they're supposed to do. And not only does it question their intents, but it starts to affect the relationship of this couple. And I mean, it almost starts to threaten to pull them apart just because the government is trying to test the water to see how far can we
Do
push
you
these
really
people.
love her? Do you really love her? Do you really love her?
Yeah,
And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? Maybe 4 years ago, she didn't think about coming to the United States. But all of us get a partner, you meet somebody, and then new dreams happen. And
yeah,
there's nothing to say that you can't have a new dream. And together you come up with a new idea. Go, hey, that'd be really cool to go there, wouldn't it? Oh, I love traveling. Yeah, let's go there. Let's see if we can immigrate. But the customs agents are like, well, don't you want to be near your family? What if you have children? What's going to happen?
yeah,
Lots of people live apart from their
yeah,
families. They go around the world and live in different countries, but they make it seem like it's sinister and what's
exactly.
wrong with it. Yeah, that was brutal. That was my
Yeah, an initiative of convenience as much as anything? Well, no. I mean, they're telling you the truth and you're still not believing them. I
yeah.
mean,
And I
you
don't
know,
know what flagged them in the beginning. I guess it was his almost marriage. Like, so what? Lots of
yeah.
people have almost get married and then they call it off, right? Then you get a new partner. So what?
This is um this
Crazy.
is an interesting offering from Tubi TV because I've never really watched it very much.
Yeah.
And yet this is essentially an original film that they're presenting and it is shown with commercials. I mean, Tubi TV does have commercials in it. But the thing is, it's so well made. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a film that's it's picked up 3 Independent Spirit Award nominations and very deservedly so. I mean, the directors and writers here really have shown some pretty impressive chops in terms of what they've put together with this film.
The actor, the woman was phenomenal.
Yes.
Like she
Yeah.
just really just to the T. And she really was an amazing actor. And to
Well,
be
actually, I thought the whole ensemble was really
yeah,
good. You've
yeah,
essentially only got like four characters in the film, but I mean, the agents were both brutal in terms of,
they
how direct and
yeah,
invasive they were with their questioning,
yeah.
and they really pulled that off well.
How many times a week do you have intercourse? Why would
Yeah,
you have somebody trying to come in your country that? Like, what does that have to do with the price of apples? Nothing,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and then you had the one agent who kept trying to, say, well, with my relatives, this happened and blah, 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 blah. And, how do we know that you're not trying to do the same thing here?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, okay, that's them. That's not her, this couple. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know,
It's crazy. It's crazy, and I'm sure that's what happens. I'm sure of it. I was coming back from the U.S. Trying to get uh, my social insurance card renewed or find it because I had one when I was younger and I lived in the US. And I was in the car with my two baby grandkids who were twins and my daughter-in-law, and they took us out of the car, took the kids out of the car in their car. They were like 2 months old out of the car seats, went through the whole car. I'm like, what? We were leaving the country. Like, what's going on here? What do you want? They wouldn't tell us what they're looking
yeah.
for. Nothing, nothing. Practically strip searched us. And because I went to get my social insurance number again, like weird. Like, who knows why they do stuff? You don't know.
So this is a pretty impressive offering from Tubi TV. I'm interested to see what they do with other movies going
I thought
forward
Tubi was
because
like Beverly Hillbillies. I thought it was like old stuff that they just
yeah.
threw in there. Yeah, but this was a really good. This was really, really good. This
So
was
this one, I'm giving this one 4 stars as well. I mean, it's really very well made, and the one thing that audiences will probably really appreciate is if you get Tubi, you can watch this for free.
yes. It was a commercial, but it
Ah,
didn't seem that bad. Gives
no,
you time to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
Potty time, as we talked about before. We need as we get a little bit older. All right.
Okay, so next we move on to a film that is this is kind of a wild one. It's a German film called The Teacher's Lounge, which basically is kind of a satire and social commentary about our society these days and how things can rapidly spin way out of control very quickly from seemingly small, innocent incidents. It tells the story of a young teacher who works at a German middle school who finds that somebody has been stealing money from her jacket pocket when she wasn't looking. So she ends up taking steps to try and find out who is responsible for it, seems to catch who's responsible, and she wants to, try and resolve it actually on fairly civil terms. But before you know it, that opens a whole can of worms that spirals out of control in so many different ways, involving a whole bunch of issues that don't relate exactly to the initial incident to begin with. And, here she's the one who's been victimized and she's having trouble getting justice for what happened to her while everybody else is screaming, my rights are being violated, my political correctness is getting in the way, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you're watching it and saying, this is absurd,
In
but when you
alternate
hear some
reality
of
here.
yeah, but when you hear some of the stories that come out in the media, I mean, it's not that far off from the truth,
Yeah.
you know? Um, it's it speaks to a rather insanely out of proportion, out of control world. Um,
Which we do live
and
in.
yeah, and the other thing too is that there are some things that are included that seem fairly outrageous, but actually end up being kind of funny. You have a sort of dark um, comic relief aspect that's playing into the story. Um, this is a wild one. I mean, I was not expecting what happened when I went to see this, and it really is a worthwhile one, worth watching. In many ways, it reminds me very much of the Dream Scenario movie that came out with Nicolas Cage a few months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's been getting a fair amount of play in awards competitions. It's nominated for an Oscar for Best International Film, deservedly so. Um, It may take a little bit of searching to find this one because it's primarily playing in limited release at art house theaters. But if you've got one of those nearby and they're showing this, by all means, go see it. I mean, you'll come away from it probably shaking your head, but you'll really get some enjoyment out of it. And I would give this one again 4 out of 5.
All right. There you
Okay,
go.
so next, this is probably the most difficult watch in the bunch, The Zone of Interest.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and, essentially, this is a story about the commandant who runs Auschwitz during World War II, and he's trying to keep a fairly normal life for his family, even though his household compound is right next door to the camp itself. And it's just very telling in terms of seeing um, the indifference that a lot of people had toward what was going on. And the film never really gets graphic in terms of depicting anything that went on in the camp, but you see the fallout and the aftermath of it. And then you also see the indifference of these family members toward what's happening right next door. And it's very chilling and
Yeah.
very spooky. I mean, it's in terms of making its point and getting its message across, this is probably one of the most affecting films about the Holocaust that I've ever seen. I mean, I've liked this even better than Sophie's Choice and Schindler's List and some of the other ones that are probably better well known. Because this one really makes its point and leaves you leaving the theater with a very uneasy feeling in your stomach.
And you should have an uneasy feeling,
Yes.
if you're still of this world, you know. And when I was in Poland and we went to the concentration camp there, and I saw the commandant's house, and you think, yeah, it's like in his backyard. They're gassing people in your backyard.
Yeah.
They're beating them. They're starving them. They're putting them to work. They're burning them. Like all of that is happening, like 20 feet away or so. But, a tree, and there it is. And you think, how can people how could people live like that? How the people in the neighborhood, how could they just accept this? Like it's beyond the imagination how they could treat people like worse than animals, worse than animals.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, in this case, you have the film with the commandant's wife, who's sort of like, bragging about all the furs that she got that were taken from the people who went to the camp. You see a scene where a couple of their kids are playing, and they're playing with extracted gold teeth. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing really gratuitous or graphic about that, but when you realize the implications of
yeah,
what's behind what's being depicted here, it just really shakes you to your core. It's the kind of film that you have a really hard time
yeah.
putting out of your mind when you leave the theater. I saw this with my partner, and he almost had to get up and leave the theater. It
Yeah.
was it was affecting him that much.
Wow.
Um, but it's again one of those films that has to be seen. It's the message has to be gotten across. Yeah,
Hard
even
to watch.
when
It's hard to watch them.
it's very hard to watch. I won't deny that one bit. But I mean, in terms of the accolades that it's received, it's deserving of every last one of them because it really makes its point, and it does so in a way that just like cuts through right to your soul. I mean, um, it's hard recommending a movie that's difficult to watch, but by the same token, you can't turn your back on something like this
And
either.
think of the climate right now because there's so many people against the Jews because of what's happening in the Gaza and here you have a movie and they're saying that the Jews are doing the Holocaust back to the Palestinians and who even knows what's
Yeah.
but you watch something like that and you think wow.
This film is also, in many ways, an echo of the work that was done by journalist and political philosopher Hannah Arendt when she covered the Eichmann trial in Israel in the 60s, where she spoke about Eichmann's attitude of what she called the banality of evil, where you have people who are doing these things and saying, "Well, I was just following orders. I was just doing my job."
Yeah.
I mean, how can you realistically take an attitude like that and feel like you can just get off the hook from
Yeah.
saying something like that?
It's my job.
You see that very clearly here in terms of the way the story is played out. I mean, there's one sequence too, and this one is another one that's kind of chilling, where the commandant is meeting with some contractors in terms of them discussing how to make the camp more efficient in terms of what they're doing.
Or they can kill it at a time.
Yeah. And they talk about it in a very matter of fact tone, like, oh, well, if we do this, we can do that. And if we do that, we can do this. And it's just, I mean, jaw dropping in terms of the impact.
And when you think of that guy who said, you know, it was my job, and then you think of you know the minister in South Korea who saved all those people and
Yeah.
puts his life on the line every day to bring people out of North.
Yes.
You know, it's not his job,
Yeah, exactly.
but he does.
Exactly. So this one, this is another four-star offering. There are a few points in the movie where the picture gets a little detracted in terms of its focus, but overall, it really kind of presents, rather than presenting like a narrative storyline, it kind of presents you with a series of incidents,
Mm.
family showing how they reacted to what was going on. And that's important to remember because it's so pervasive and takes so many different forms. So, in light of that, I did save the best for last year, considering all the heaviness involved in the other films. This one is, I mean, rather substantive as well, but in a really good way. And that's All of Us Strangers. And this is a positively beautiful film in so many regards. This is a film that talks about the power of love and the impact it can have in terms of helping people to change their lives, turn them around, and also to help others as a result of it. In many ways, it's sort of like some of the messages involved in memory, but only on steroids. It's that much more prominent. It follows the story of a gay London screenwriter who's kind of lonely. He's been estranged from his parents for a long time. And he ends up meeting a neighbor with who has an interest in him romantically. And he's not quite sure what to do about it because he's been by himself for so long. He's become very accustomed to being by himself. So he ends up having a series of meetings with his parents, who he hasn't seen for a while. And I want to be really careful not to put any spoilers in this one because
Yes.
it could be easy to do that and spoil it for viewers, but I won't do that. But he ends up having an involvement with them, which helps him heal the fact that they've been apart for so long and that they've been able to reconnect and show a healing sort of love for one another. And they're trying to say, look, take what you've learned here and apply it to your relationship because not only will it benefit you, but it will benefit him too because he's also had a troubled past that he's trying to recover from. And just the way the whole thing plays out is just so beautifully done. The gorgeous cinematography, beautiful music, very obviously loving characters, a script that I can tell you from as a gay man is extremely authentic in terms of the way it's told, the dialogue, the situations, everything about it. Um, the one thing I also liked about this film is that even though you're dealing with gay characters in this film, it's really not about their sexuality. That's sort of almost incidental. It's really a film that has to do more with the power of love and how it can be used in so many different ways to find companionship, to heal yourself, to get over the past, to help you help others. It's a message that is just, to me, so powerful and so strong, and one that we really need today. That whether you're dealing with gay characters or not is almost irrelevant. I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of the things I found really so striking about this picture. Now, I should also add, if you see the trailer for this, it's probably not going to be giving you a
Accurate.
really clear indication of what this movie is about until you actually start watching it. Because I found that when I was watching, and I didn't really know that much about it when I went to the theater, I was like, gosh, this is nothing of what I expected from when I
Yeah.
saw the
Yeah.
trailer for it, which probably is something that made me like it even more. I mean, it really hits home and leaves quite an impact on you. And definitely take the handkerchiefs with you because you're going to need them. Uh, it's that kind of moving of a story. It's been, picking up some accolades during an award season, but one of the things that absolutely shocked me is it did not get nominated for a single Oscar. Yeah, I mean, that was the reaction I had the day when I saw the Oscar awards announcement. I'm like, where is All of Us Strangers? Why isn't this up for at least a half a dozen different things? And it didn't get anything. And I was really pretty annoyed with that because it really deserves it. And this ended up being number two on my list of films for
Yeah, honestly, it
2023.
would have been on your list of Oscar
Yeah,
contenders.
yeah. So I recommend this one extremely highly, and I'm going to give this one 4.5.
All
I'm
right.
even pretty close to five. I mean, it's a movie that's virtually just about perfect in almost every regard, and I haven't been able to say that about a movie in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well,
Mm.
there you go. We got
Yeah.
some great movies
So
for you.
yeah, I mean, I recommend them all highly. Now, just a couple of little things I wanted to throw in on to close. Um, I recently published blogs showing my best, worst, and documentary choices for 2023. They're on my website, www.brentmarchant.com. There's also links on the Good Media Network Movies with Meaning page. And check them out. I mean,
Yeah.
probably a lot of people aren't going to agree with some of the stuff I came up with, but I'm willing to respect
Give
them
a
if
bit of
they'd like to
criteria too.
respect me.
Maybe you should explain. I mean, you probably don't see a lot of mainstream movies done here. You have a little bit of
It's
a
it's
criteria.
it's sort of a mix. It's kind of half and half. I mean, there's certain kinds of movies you're probably not going to see. You're not going to see a lot of animation. You're not going to see a lot of um, out and out action adventure movies, unless they've got some kind of deeper meaning going on with them.
It is
You'll see
really
virtually no horror films.
grand,
Um, you know,
except for the one that you
well,
did.
yeah, that was one that I actually discovered sort of by accident while channel surfing, and I thought, gosh, this is bloody disgusting. I mean, um, but the thing is, I mean, I've always felt in doing the movies with meaning segment on the Good Media Network website is the fact that I'm trying to talk about movies that are offering viewers something more than just a good story. I'm really looking for films that both entertain and enlighten.
Mhm.
And that's not always an easy combination to come by, especially in mainstream films. But, when they do come out, I really feel they need to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Then there are others that proclaim to try and do that sort of thing and end up, falling flat in many ways. And I know that there are some on my worst list that people are going to take real issue with, but
Yeah,
hey, that's
and
what I
that's why,
thought.
they are, some of them are hard to find, some of them
Yeah.
are, you have to make an effort to watch them. But they're worthwhile. That's
Yeah, and the thing is, there are websites that you can go to now to check out where you can stream them.
yeah,
I mean, the one that I often rely on is called Just Watch.
yeah,
And I mean, you just enter the movie title into the search field, and click on that and click on the country that you're in,
yeah,
and that'll tell you what sources, are available for streaming, and then even give you pricing and availability, whether you want to rent it or buy it. I mean,
yeah,
they give you a lot of information, and it's just a few clicks. I mean, it's not
yeah.
like you're really having to go to any terribly great effort for that. So,
And
um,
I think it's nice that, I mean, personally, I love foreign film. It doesn't bother me to watch with a subtitle.
Yeah.
I think they have a different point of view. They have a different perspective on life. You see a different, and it doesn't follow the same formula as a movie you might find in the United States.
Well, exactly. I mean, a lot of American films, unfortunately, have started falling back on franchises and sequels and remakes and all that kind of stuff.
Why is Willy
And
Wonka back out? Like, I just don't get
it's the
it.
third time. I
Yeah, I don't
mean,
get it.
I don't get that either. But
I
so,
think of a new
so
idea.
yeah,
This is it.
and I would say, give these movies a shot. Some of them might not be available right away. Some might take a little longer to get into the marketplace because I see a lot of foreign films and a lot of documentaries at film festivals, and a lot of times those movies will come out long before at the festivals than they do in general distribution. So sometimes you just have to have a little bit of patience to wait for them to come around. So
Now, if you can't find a movie, I'm going to recommend a show on Netflix I've been enjoying so much, and that's Loudermouth. Have you watched it?
no,
Phenomenal. It's
no,
so,
I've kind of given up on watching a lot of series television. The reason being for that, very simply, is that no sooner do I seem to take an interest in something when it gets canceled.
I know.
You
I'm the
know,
same, because the shows that I really like, they usually go. But at
yeah.
least there's 3 seasons out on this, and it's hilarious. He's very acerbic wit, and it's well written. Rob Livingston is the lead, and he's a great actor, and it's just really funny. It's
I
a
really, I really wish that some of these studios and distribution companies would give these shows more of a chance to
yes,
find an audience. I mean, it's especially hard these days given how many more sources of programming that are out there than there used to be at one time. And when you had three networks, okay, I mean, you didn't have a whole lot of choice there, but now, like, considering all the streaming services and everything, and
yeah. I
um,
mean, and it's always the ones I really really like that,
yeah.
and it just drives me insane. And it just says, does that mean you don't think that? But there is an audience. I know that there's an audience for
Yeah.
it. It's really good work. It's not maybe the audience they want to have it. I don't know what it is, but
It's kind of ironic for me because actually, when I was younger, I actually preferred TV to movies,
yeah,
and I watched a lot of TV. But then again, there were fewer viewing choices. So, I mean,
yeah,
my attention wasn't as widely scattered as it would be if I were trying to follow
yeah.
series
I mean,
television
and even
program these
TV
days.
shows on regular TV, I can't watch them anymore. They're just too, yeah. But this is a really good show, and I don't think it was ever on mainstream. I think it must have been on some kind of a, like an HBO channel or something like that. And now it's on Netflix, and it's just a really fun show.
Well,
Uh,
the thing with the streaming services is they can get away with more
yeah,
than network television can. I mean, and I kind of, in this day and age, I mean, I think they really should like kind of loosen the restrictions on broadcast TV because look, come on, it's a different time than it was in the 1950s. You don't have to keep, you know, putting these restrictions on them that they've been doing. I
yeah.
mean, um,
I mean,
so
we
I
know that
mean,
people don't sleep in two beds.
yeah, I mean the only I would say that probably the only series television that I watch routinely these days is, I mean, I'm a very big Star Trek fan. I really love Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I mean, it's phenomenal in so many ways. And I hope that they don't cancel it anytime soon because I really like watching the episodes on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
So one last thing I wanted to say before we close is I wanted to say thank you to all of our listeners and viewers who helped to make FrankieSense and More have a big audience jump in 2023.
thank
A
you.
25% increase in audience. That's impressive. I'm really very happy with that and really want to say thank you. I know you've done that already too, but I feel like I need to add my two
That's
cents in
great.
that because
And it's not just from the United States, it's global,
yeah,
which is really
yeah.
cool. So thank you.
I guess I guess they think we have something to say. So
There you go. And
I'll
I think
take
they're
that.
probably happy that, we're reviewing their movies in front of
Yeah.
the movies. Because, I mean, I think we really have been around the world, from Finland to France to Germany to Japan. Like, I mean, we've done the gamut. So I think people like that Korea, we've seen a lot of Korea. Actually, last night when I was watching the documentary, and I said, oh, I got to do something, I got to join Kayla's mission and all that stuff. My husband, because I think you're coming back as a Korean in your next life, because I watch Korean TV all the time. But I just enjoy it. I enjoy their gentility, I guess. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, and they produce really good
They do.
films
They do.
also. I mean, when you think about it, the first foreign film ever to win the Best Picture award was from South Korea.
Yeah.
I mean that who would have expected that? I mean, given the cinematic traditions of places from Europe and so forth, you think, oh yeah, an Italian film or a French film or whatever, they're going to come out on top in that category first. No, it was South Korea.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool. So thank you for watching. Please continue to watch and enjoy these movies. I think that there is something here for everybody, and they are worth that little extra effort. And the ones that we reviewed today, really go and watch those ones.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
just like
Yeah.
we're the best crop of the crop, I think.
And that kind of brings us to the end of most of the releases that came out during award season. So we'll be talking about some new ones next time. But we'll also be looking at the Oscars next time too.
All
Let
right.
people
Take
know
care,
our
everybody.
predictions for that. Take care.
Bye. Stop recording.